We are coming on the air tonight with breaking news. Dramatic body cam video showing the moment a police officer comes face to face with the man attempting to assassinate former President Trump just before he fired. And the finger pointing now captured on those cameras from local officials. We're breaking down what we're just learning and what's next in the investigation. Plus, Tropical Storm Take 2 as Debby makes landfall yet again, spitting off tornadoes and triggering devastating flooding. We're live in North Carolina as the now deadly storm moves through that state. Then what could have been what officials call a bloodbath at Taylor Swift's Vienna concerts stopped in its tracks. The tip from the U.S. that helped prevent it and what this means for other big events. And viral IUD insertion horror stories now finally getting the feds' attention. How health officials are pushing doctors to do better for women. Plus, a huge night for the USA at the Olympics. The stunning moment Noah Lyle ended up off the track after running with COVID. The new world record on the field, the instant classics in volleyball and basketball. And for the very last time these games, Keir Simmons' favorite moment as he prepares for his own personal best, the live shot he'll do for us later on in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are coming on the air tonight with dramatic new body cam video showing the exact moment a police officer climbed onto the roof where a would-be assassin was getting ready to open fire on former President Trump. Want to show it to you here. This is the video I'm talking about, showing a Butler Township, Pennsylvania police officer climbing up on the roof before immediately dropping back down. Potentially because there was concern that the shooter could turn his rifle on the officer. There's no audio from that moment, but some video later captures the officer's immediate reaction to what he saw. Listen to this.
This close, bro. Dude, he turned around on me. Seriously, he was right where you picked me up, bro. He was on that left side.
Now remember, the suspect, the shooter, was able to get several shots off in the moments after that officer climbed the roof, hurting the former president and killing a bystander before he then was killed by a Secret Service sniper. NBC's Tom Winners all over these late-breaking developments for us. Okay, let's talk us through what we're seeing and hearing, because there's some new insights we're getting based on the conversations between these officers and what this video shows.
Hallie, some of the most important evidence to law enforcement officials when they investigate a crime are the things that people immediately say after something has happened, because it's at that moment that their memory is most clear, that they are reacting in their most genuine way to whatever trauma or shock that they just saw. The video that you played for us and the video that we're looking at now captures a moment. We don't see it because, remember, the body-worn camera is worn at approximately the chest level, so we don't see it as he tries to get up on the roof and immediately drops back down, because according to the Secret Service testimony and the timeline of events, it's 30 seconds after he gets up on that roof where he sees Thomas Matthew Crooks turn to him with his rifle and point at him that he jumps down, radios, and 30 seconds later, there are shots fired at the former president. But of course, a lot of this over the past several weeks has been, how could that have even happened? And we heard today from a Butler Township Police Department member in what he says happened in the back and forth with the Secret Service leading up to this event. Let's take a listen, Hallie.
I told them they need to post the guy over here. I told them that the Secret Service. I told them that Tuesday. I told them to post guys over here.
Hallie, in addition to that, he later says on the tape that he had a discussion with the Secret Service on Tuesday. So remember, the shooting was on a Saturday. Tuesday, several days beforehand, he's talking to the Secret Service where he says that they should have been posted back there. That back there on the video is behind the building or buildings where eventually Crooks was able to get on top of and fire shots at former President Trump, 8 rounds in total. So that's the reaction that we're getting from police officers in the seconds after this happened. And clearly they were upset that they were even responding to this at all based on what they say. They told the Secret Service. We're still waiting on a response from the Secret Service, but of course we've reached out to them.
Okay, that was a question there, too, because of the criticism now, and we've seen this wedge, essentially, between the locals, the state, and the federal officials who are on this. Tom, given your expertise on this story, and as you say, potentially the most important evidence that we have seen since that assassination attempt happened into the investigation into how these security failures occurred, does this raise other new questions? In other words, bring us inside your reporter's notebook. What else now? Like, what other paths does this open up here?
It is critical that we start to get some answers from the Secret Service in this investigation as to who was told what and when. And very clearly there was a walkthrough. This happens all the time. They get everybody involved. If this was in New York City, they'd bring in the NYPD and they'd say, hey, what do you all see as a potential threat or a problem with this building or this street or this avenue? And they go through it and they sit around a table and everybody thinks about what are all the things that somebody could do. Okay, how are we going to cover that? That appears to have taken place here, if we're to believe the officer, in what is clearly an immediate reaction after this event. And so who was he talking to? What was said? And the critical question that I continue to have, actually two questions. One, did anybody go back to that building and check, do we have officers where we need them to be? Is the Secret Service where we need them to be? Are we on top of that roof? Who was responsible for checking the math? And then the second question is, it's very clear from the first video, this video that we're looking at right now, that the officer did alert that this person was on the roof, and the fact that there were two separate command posts and that information couldn't be relayed real time, I think is going to be a big, big component of this investigation going forward, Hallie.
Tom Winter, important reporting. Thank you very much. Lots to follow on that front. Also, lots to follow down south, because tonight we are on the ground as Tropical Storm Debby carves another path of dangerous destruction across the south. As we speak, slamming North Carolina. I want to show you the scene just outside Raleigh, where a tornado ripped apart a home and a middle school. One person was killed. As the governor says, that state is facing unrelenting rain and destruction. And if this is giving you some deja vu, it's because, yes, this is the second time now that this same storm, Debby, has made landfall. And it is a triple threat of a ton of rain, flash flooding, and, of course, the tornadoes that we just showed you. Close to 100,000 people are in the dark all across the Carolinas as this storm rips through, knocking down power lines everywhere in its path. And it's not over yet. Debby's now going to move further north with tens of millions of people along a nearly 1,000-mile stretch in its path all the way up to Canada. I want to get to Priscilla Thompson, who's live for us in North Carolina. And it is story after story, Priscilla, of people whose lives have been changed by this storm system and its damage.
Yeah, absolutely, Hallie. The good news today is that a lot of those floodwaters that rushed into those communities overnight is starting to recede. But I will tell you the threat that is still rising, and that is the rivers. We've been here about the past 3 hours and have had to move our crew about 50 feet because of how quickly this river is rising. It is expected to reach major flood stage, so going to continue to rise before it ultimately crests. But as we're watching these rivers, we're also in these communities where folks are cleaning up. We were in a community about 20 minutes from here that went under a voluntary evacuation overnight as floodwaters rushed into that downtown area. They said within an hour they had about 3 feet of water in some of those businesses, and people from that community, small, close-knit community, began coming out trying to help people get furniture, get things out of their businesses, put things higher up. I spoke to some folks in that community, and I want to play a little bit of what they had to say down there in Bladenboro.
It looked like a lake. Where we're standing right now, we would have been in shin bone deep, knee deep water. It's just, you know, it's our fourth storm in the last 12, 15 years.
That's flooded like this.
That's flooded like
yeah,
this.
It looked very familiar, but not in a good way. When something like this happens, we all jump in and do all we can and take it very seriously.
And tragically, we did see that tornado roll through Lucoma outside of Raleigh. One person killed there, bringing the death toll from the storm to 7 as it continues to move north. And as you noted, still 70,000 people here in North Carolina without power. Hallie?
Priscilla Thompson live there for us in Lumberton. Thank you. We're getting some new details tonight on that planned attack on Taylor Swift's concerts in Vienna, with officials saying one of the suspects confessed that he wanted to kill as many people as possible with knives and explosives at one of her shows and then die by suicide himself. Officials finding some assembled explosive devices inside his home, along with, in their words, vast amounts of al-Qaeda and ISIS material. Just about 24 hours ago, remember, we brought you here as breaking news on this show. The concert organizers had quickly decided to cancel all 3 Swift shows set to start tonight and go into the weekend after officials arrested 2 suspects. Taylor Swift's concert manager says part of the reason they decided to cancel was because one of the suspects had actually worked at the venue for days. The cancellations, obviously still a disappointment, of course, to fans. Listen.
was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to come with my bestie to see Taylor Swift, and so I'm a little bummed.
We planned all year to be here, so what a huge disappointment for our friends and for our kids.
We were just heartbroken to hear that it was canceled.
When the news got out that it was canceled, there were a lot of tears.
Of course, questions now about what this whole situation means for other big events planned in that city over the next few days and weeks, including 4 mega Coldplay concerts at the end of the month. Ken Delanian is joining us now. So it's a lot of new details that have come out since we were sort of unpacking this right when it was happening yesterday on this show. Talk us through a little bit about where the investigation stands, because it sounds like from what officials say, it had the potential to be very serious.
Extremely serious, Hallie, and it appears that this was a close call. We learned that U.S. intelligence provided the original tip to Austrian authorities that led them to find the suspect. Apparently, he had posted a manifesto pledging allegiance to ISIS a few weeks before, and that may have contributed to them finding him. They searched his house. As you said, they found a machete, explosives, chemicals, ISIS and al-Qaeda propaganda. He has now confessed, we are told, and he planned to kill as many people as he could and himself. And this just underscores the threat from radical Islam, particularly in Europe, that has not gone away.
Taylor Swift still has other shows. I mean, and her crowds, we know, are huge. Tons of people turn out for her. She's one of the world's biggest stars. She's heading to London, I believe, next. The mayor there says those shows, for now, are going to go on as planned. But talk about the concern around the world now. Australia just raised its terror threat level, et cetera. I mean, it feels like there are some places that are getting to be a little bit on edge.
Yeah, what's so concerning is we thought we were out of the woods with this Islamic extremist terror threat. It seems to be resurging, and these are so difficult to, these plots are so difficult to ferret out because they are lone wolves. There's no evidence of any connection to specific ISIS people. They were inspired online, and that can happen anywhere. Remember, in 2017, there was an attack in Manchester on an Ariana Grande concert that killed a number of people. So British authorities are mindful of that. They say they are stepping up security. And, you know, you can't stop every outdoor or concert or venue. You got to live your life, and that's what they intend to do with vigilance.
Ken Delanian, thank you very much for all that reporting. Appreciate it. In just the last couple of hours, we've seen former President Trump commit, he says, to 3 debates next month on 3 different networks in his first public appearance since Vice President Harris announced Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota as her running mate. So, okay, Mr. Trump has said he'll be at these 3 debates. What about Vice President Harris? Here's what she said to our Shaq Brewster just a couple minutes ago.
Madam Vice President, Donald Trump agreed to 3 debates. Will you be participating in all 3?
I've always been on record. I am looking forward to debating Donald Trump, and we have a date of September 10th. I hear he has finally committed to it. I'm looking forward.
What about the other 2?
Let's make sure we get this photo of everyone.
All right, the VP's response there coming after a pretty long stem winder of a press conference from former President Trump, who at various points personally insulted Harris's intelligence, ran through a long list of claims that are not true, and seemed kind of annoyed by the talk of crowd sizes at Harris-Walz rallies, making a controversial comparison between the crowd he spoke to on January 6th and the crowd who watched MLK give the I Have a Dream speech. Listen.
The biggest crowd I've ever spoken, I've spoken to the biggest crowds. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me. If you look at Martin Luther King, when he did his speech, his great speech, and you look at ours, same real estate, same everything, same number of people, if not, we had more.
Okay. It's obviously not the case. As tonight, we see a tale of 2 campaigns emerge with 2 very different strategies. We've got team coverage across both campaigns. NBC's Shaq Brewster, the aforementioned, is in Detroit with the vice president. But we'll start with Garrett Haake outside Mr. Trump's Mar-a-Lago club in West Palm Beach, Florida. All right, Garrett, let me start with you, because you were in the room when this went down. And this was significant because this was the first time we were going to see from Donald Trump on camera in public taking questions since Governor Walz was announced as Vice President Harris's running mate here. It was a lot of the sort of stumpy, rally-ish grievances that we've often heard from him before, but it also was some insight into where his head is at right now, strategy-wise, in a race that is extremely competitive now.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. Look, if there's one issue on which Donald Trump is likely to exaggerate in any format, it's crowd size. And if there are 2 issues in which he's likely to exaggerate, the second is polling. And today we saw him do both. And I think that is partly his response to what has been this surge from Harris, if not, you know, wildly overtaking Donald Trump in the polls, which mostly still show this very much a neck-and-neck campaign, at least erasing an enthusiasm gap that had existed on the Democratic side when it was Joe Biden at the top of the ticket. And I think the main point of this news conference conference today was, in fact, to have a news conference at all and to try to put the Harris campaign on the back foot for what has been a strategy of largely avoiding questions other than Shaq's today that they don't have to take. And then the other big point, I think, was to try to put this sort of debate into a spotlight, as Donald Trump did with this moment here, in which he said he would do at least these 3 debates that we know about.
About some of this here. Okay, so the debates, obviously, September 10th seems to be a go with ABC News. A couple question marks on the rest, including the vice presidential debate. But what's also interesting here is the way that you heard the former president talk about the race. I think it was you who asked him what he has seen, what he thinks it is about the Harris campaign that is injected such enthusiasm into Democrats here. And he responded, she's a woman, and went on to talk about, I think, some identity politics type stuff in his view. The strategy, you had a chance to kind of unpack this with some senior advisors, seems to be not necessarily to win over swing voters, but to supercharge the base that already exists. As he suggested that maybe 75% of America is his base. There's no polling nor popular vote results that show that to be true, but there you have it.
Yeah, I think that's mostly right, Hallie. I mean, look, the way that we think about swing voters in this election has to change if we're talking about what the Trump campaign strategy is here. It is mostly a turnout strategy to get the people who they know who have voted for Donald Trump in the past to vote for Donald Trump again in a race where they think turnout will actually be down from what we saw in 2020, probably above what we saw in 2016, but somewhere in that sweet spot. Their idea of targetable, persuadable voters isn't suburban moms. It isn't Nikki Haley voters. It is mostly white men who are a little bit younger and who are not as engaged in this political process as folks who watch the news every day might be. That's why he does podcasts. That's why he was on a streaming platform usually used to watch people play video games on Monday. It's why he pays attention to UFC fights and talks to that audience. That's who they see as the persuadable voters who they still have to convince, not even necessarily to vote for Donald Trump, but to show up and vote. That is the way, part of the way that they're looking at this campaign. I think it speaks to some of the tactical and strategic decisions we have seen him make that have so perplexed political veterans. So, you know, why he's not doing the traditional kind of campaign things you'd expect a Republican ticket to do. That's just fundamentally not how his campaign sees this race developing.
Garrett Haake, so what's next then? He heads to Montana, right?
That's right. Raising money and holding a rally in Montana, mostly for the Republican Senate candidate there, not a competitive general election state for Donald Trump.
All right, Garrett Haake, thank you very much. Shaq, let me go to you with that. I think we can call it a one-on-one-ish with the vice president there, asking her about that debate proposal. There's been this line of criticism that you heard from former President Trump that she hasn't done any media interviews since she announced that she obviously was going to try to take the top of the ticket and became the Democratic nominee for president here. The Harris campaign is suggesting that is going to change within the next few weeks, right?
Yeah, they are, and they say that you can expect a joint interview in the next couple of weeks, though it's likely that that will take place after the Democratic National Convention. And, you know, when you're talking to campaign aides and advisors, they acknowledge that they do need to speak more to the media. There's some self-awareness there. They say that you can expect to see her talking to local media, talking to national media, also talking to social media influencers. So you can expect to see her out a little bit more, but there's an acknowledgement that she hasn't been doing it that much. We do know, for example, that she's had to she was tucked away doing this vice presidential selection. She has had to build this campaign from a point when you had President Biden dropping out somewhat suddenly. So there's an awareness that they need to engage a little bit more. And at least if you look at what happened earlier today, there's at least a hint that they are planning to do that.
So what is next now for not just Harris, but also for President Biden, who is going to be, I think, in Delaware in just a little bit later on tonight for this off-camera meeting with his now former campaign staff?
Yeah, off camera and behind closed doors, so it's not a rally. It's not like you'll see him on stage or see them together. Look, that's somewhat of an open question. He was asked about that over the course of the weekend, and he seemed as if he wanted to get out there, but kind of deferred to what the campaign, the now Harris campaign, is doing. But, you know, look at this polling, and you get a little bit of a sense of why there's at least some hesitation there. Back when President Biden was the nominee, you had a significant amount of the vote. You had about 30% 33%. So saying that they were satisfied with Biden. Now that number is 81% of Democrats saying that they are satisfied with Harris as their nominee. I think there's an opportunity to, we talk about the campaigns trying to define both the VP and the governor. That's part of the reason. It seems like he's trying to give them some space to do just that.
So we saw that moment of you being able to get that question into Vice President Harris. How did that work? Just walked up to her, had your phone ready? You take a lot of selfies because I could tell your phone was right there, right position?
There were a lot of yells, a lot of times just along the rope line where I kept trying to ask that question, and I finally went to the end, and that's where we had a little bit of luck there in getting it answered. It's
great confirmation. Jack Brewster, thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. Let's take it to Wall Street with some breaking news now. The S&P closing today with, wait for it, its best day since 2002. Just 3 days after it saw its worst day since 2022, I should say 22. Take a look at everything in the green tonight. The Dow, the S&P, the NASDAQ. Remember, it was only a few days ago that we were talking to you about how worried investors seem to be because of last week's worse-than-expected jobs reports and concerns the Fed needed to cut interest rates ASAP to try to avoid a recession. Editor-in-chief at Investopedia, Caleb Silver, is joining us now. How is it from Monday to now, this is what's happening here? Is this just kind of where the markets are on this roller coaster and we all just need to sit back and chill?
Yeah, and through it all, we're only down about 0.5% in the S&P 500 this week, so it almost came all the way back. But sometimes bad news in the economy, good news for the stock market, good news for the economy, bad news for the stock market. Now we're in the good news is good news because we got lower than expected weekly jobless claims. We normally don't pay a lot of attention to that, but every data point matters now that July unemployment report rose to 4.3%. So we're looking at every little piece of data right now, and this was good news. Maybe we don't have a recession. Maybe the unemployment rate doesn't go up from here. So you saw some enthusiasm coming back into the stock market today. All sectors in the S&P 500 higher. Dow and the NASDAQ also higher. So I guess the bulls started running again, but we'll see. We still have Friday, and we're a long way out from the rest of the year and the elections.
I should also just remind people, like my people, like normal, non-super CNBC intense people with respect to the economy nerds among us here, Caleb, that typically, right, the advice for folks is to sit back. If you're not day trading stocks, don't stress about your 401k on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. That's still the operative thinking here?
Absolutely. The stock market rises on average between 8 and 10% a year. You could just watch this happen. I had friends asking me if they should sell it all the other night. I said, please go to bed and let's talk tomorrow, and I'm glad that they did that.
Very good. Caleb Silver, can I get on that text chain? Because I might have some questions for you, too. Thank you, friend. Appreciate it. Boeing's new CEO tonight trying to hit the ground running with day one of a tough job under his belt. And he's already getting some praise. That's because Kelly Ortberg has taken the lead from the factory floor of a company in crisis mode. Yeah, he spent the day walking around Boeing's factory out in Renton, Washington, talking to workers, looking over safety plans, quality plans. He has plans to do the same at other Boeing plants as well. In an email to employees today, he says people's lives depend on what we do every day, and we must keep that top of mind. May not be easy. There's a lot on the line for Boeing after some pretty serious image issues. The door plug that blew out of an Alaska Airlines flight midair earlier this year. 2 deadly crashes, of course, of its best-selling planes back in 2018 and 2019. Last month, when the company agreed to plead guilty to defrauding the government during the certification of its MAX planes. We've been telling you about Boeing's Starliner spaceship, still in space 2 months after its crew was supposed to come home. Not stuck, according to Boeing and NASA, but maybe there for as many as the next 6 months. Tom Costello, you hear him here. He's joining us right now. But it is, it's been a year for Boeing and not the kind of year that they wanted to have. You now have this guy who has maybe the hardest job in aviation starting his first day today.
Yeah, listen, this company is vital to the national economy. Nobody other than maybe Airbus, nobody's rooting against Boeing. But they've got a lot of problems. And it's not just the 737 MAX 8 crashes overseas and the MAX 9 door plug, or the fact that they pleaded guilty to a felony, or the fact that they're under NTSB and FAA investigation, or the fact that they've got an Inspector General report coming down hard on them for their space division, or an IG report coming down hard on their Pentagon Defense Division. Take a look at the to-do list, and as I read that to you, or as you see what the to-do list is, let me just make the point. It is space, Starliners, we said, commercial aircraft. I just went back and looked at defense. Defense is operating at a loss. You know, they make a lot of planes, a lot of weapon systems. $3.5 billion loss in 2022, $1.8 billion in 23. The GAO found 108 weapon systems have problems, 9 major cost overruns. We've got problems with the new Air Force One, behind schedule, over budget, with the new F-15EX fighter, with the KC-46 tanker, and with the trainer. The entire defense system, the unit, is in trouble, not to mention every other unit. The reason that he's moving his headquarters, his CEO-ship, back to Renton, Washington, is because that is essentially the heart and soul of Boeing. It's where commercial aircraft are made. They moved the headquarters to Chicago about 20 years ago. Then they moved it to Alexandria, Virginia, to be close to the Pentagon, and they took their eye off the ball here, clearly, on commercial aviation.
So it's a lot on his plate. I mean, all of that boils down to this is a lot on this guy's plate. Yeah. And he's had 2 predecessors who were also tasked in different ways under different circumstances with trying to inject Boeing with some more, you know, oomph, if you will. They had a tough time. Is he going to do any better?
Listen, this company has a history of CEOs who have failed. Failed with a capital F. Look at the list of CEOs. And then I'm going to tell you how much these people made. Dennis Muhlenberg was the CEO. He was there during the MAX 8. I'm sorry, he failed miserably. He got something like a $50 million payout. So they brought in Dave Calhoun, MAX 9, the door plug blowout, Starliner, everything going on now in the defense unit. He leaves with a $45 million payout. Now they bring in Kelly Ortberg, $17 million for taking the job, $22 million salary. A lot of people are hoping he is the answer. Yeah. He comes with a very impressive resume on aerospace engineering for aerospace companies. But listen, this is a tough, tough job, and the pressure's on.
Tom Costello, just fascinating. Thank you for watching all of it for us as it goes down. Appreciate it. People in Hawaii tonight honoring more than 100 people killed by the devastating wildfires that tore through Maui 1 year ago. That's right, it's been a year since the town of Lahaina burned. Now they're hosting several community events, including what you're looking at here, a beach paddle out and then an evening memorial tonight. Remember, this horrific fire started out as a brush fire, was boosted by high winds, and then exploded into a full-blown wildfire, with questions still over what sparked it and what led for it to get so out of control. Thousands of people lost their homes. Historic landmarks were destroyed. Now, rebuilding's finally happening again, but it's happening slowly, with a lot of families still living in hotels. President Biden today is promising that his administration will give more support, saying we've made tremendous progress this last year, but we have a lot more to do. NBC's Steve Patterson is back tonight in the town of Lahaina, and it is a very different scene behind you than when you and I spoke a year ago. Give us a sense of how people are feeling at this very somber but important moment.
We're at the tail end of this paddle out, so that footage that you just saw wrapping up now, people swarming this beach. And I got to tell you, I mean, I don't know how much sense this makes, but we've been here since Monday. We've either interviewed so many people or been to the press conferences of offices of so many different people. And I think what's so telling is that all of them are here. The mayor, the governor, this lieutenant colonel with the Army Corps of Engineers is here. The guy that showed us this housing development is here as well. Everybody is here because everybody cares about this community, and they are so together. And unfortunately, the trauma and the significant amount of loss, but also the process, I think, of healing. Everybody, including the public officials, to the citizens who have lost everything, are sort of in it together, feeling that sense of trauma, still requiring, I think, some answers, still feeling a sense of uneasiness about everything that's going on, still wanting to know what's going to happen next in a lot of ways, but also doing that together and moving forward and trying to heal. And I think some of that healing is coming because we're finally starting to get some of that permanent housing that was promised early on. Hallie.
Officials and locals want to be really intentional, from our reporting, on how they rebuild and really put some thought behind it. That obviously takes time, right? I mean, that's part of the process here, too, why it's not an instantaneous moment. You know, snap your fingers and things are back to normal. That was never what it was going to be.
Never. And of course it was going to take time. I think Of course, there could have been more transparency with some of the messaging. I think it takes an incredible amount of time just to clean the area, that fire area. It's now 90% cleaned up of debris. So finally, some of the permits are starting to come through. Some of the builds are going up, about 20 units right now being built. But I think, obviously there were some answers on where people would be going. A lot of some of the housing, the temporary housing and hotels fell through on folks, and it left people in a bad way with a bad taste in their mouth. But I think now, especially since that settlement is coming through, things are going to change in a big way moving forward. The governor said the first year is about survival, but phase 2 is all about rebuilding. So we'll see. Hallie?
Steve Patterson live for us in Lahaina tonight. Thank you. Coming up, officials say one athlete is dead after competing in the CrossFit Games. What we're learning from police now about what happened. Plus, new questions tonight about the fact-checking system for X, formerly Twitter. Just how far misinformation, including from Elon Musk, can spread. New and growing concerns tonight about the spread of election misinformation online, specifically on X, formerly known as Twitter, with a new report showing that false or misleading claims about the election posted by Elon Musk himself have been seen more than 1 billion times. More than 1 billion times, billion with a B. That's according to the nonprofit Center for Countering Digital Hate. These researchers say they found 50 posts by Musk, the owner of X, with election claims that had been debunked by fact checkers, including claims that our American elections are wide open for fraud and illegal voting by non-citizens. NBC News and other organizations have fact-checked those claims that non-citizens are registering to vote, finding them to be false. Neither Musk nor X replied to requests for comment. David Ingram is joining us now. So what's so interesting here is the Musk of it all, because when he bought Twitter and then changed the name to X, he also laid off a bunch of people, and that raised some concerns and alarms that sounded at the time, and we covered them, about fact-checking, about the ability to platform dis or misinformation. X has this user-driven fact-checking system. People will recognize that at the bottom of a tweet that's wrong or a post that's wrong. It feels like from this research that may not be working so effectively here. What's happening?
Yeah, Hallie, I think that's exactly right. This is not working perhaps at all, and certainly not to the extent that Musk claims that it does. So this fact-checking system on X, it's called Community Notes. It was actually created before Musk bought the company, and it was never intended to be this complete truth squatting system to catch every piece of misinformation. Twitter used to have staff at their headquarters in San Francisco and elsewhere who would help to track misinformation that was spreading on the platform and limit its spread. Now X is relying entirely on this system that is vote-based. And so you have so many of these fans of Elon Musk who are using X and voting down perhaps some of the proposed notes on his false claims.
Let's talk about Elon Musk, because a lot of people do. He is a Trump backer. He has committed to donating, he says, millions of dollars a month to Trump. There's a question of whether that's actually going to happen, et cetera. But he has a huge audience online on his platform. It's nearly 200 million followers here. He's got a big megaphone, and there have been some questions as to how he's used it.
Yeah, he has really taken a big stake in this election, come out strong for Donald Trump, and he's using this enormous megaphone to try to push issues that are favorable to Trump, including immigration, and to criticize Democrats. The question here is what kind of consequences he could face for this over the long term. He spent $44 billion to buy Twitter 2 years ago. It's now lost something like 70% of its value. So this is a losing business for him right now. But also Musk has these long-term reputational ideas where people just think less of him. So we'll see how that plays out over time.
Yeah. David Ingram, great reporting. Thank you. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, a competitor has died during the swimming portion of the CrossFit Games today in Texas. He was 28 years old. He was from Serbia. We don't know yet the exact cause of his death. CrossFit suspended the rest of today's events, saying that they are fully cooperating with officials on this investigation. Number 2, the CDC says a 3rd person has died in that listeria outbreak from deli meat we've been telling you about. Officials say now that more than 40 people have been hospitalized across 13 states. Boar's Head, remember, expanded its recall last week to include 7 million more pounds of deli meat. Number 3, magician David Copperfield getting sued for allegedly trashing his New York City condo. The suit accuses him of causing nearly $2 million worth of damage to the elevators in the building, more than $1 million worth of damage to other units. At one point, allegedly, his rooftop pool burst because it says he used bad plumbing fixtures. So then units as far as 30 floors down flooded, reportedly. His team has not returned NBC's request for comment. Number 4, look at this. A groundhog rescued after getting stuck inside a claw machine in Pennsylvania. The Commonwealth's Game Commission says they got a call about an unusual prize in one of their machines. Unusual indeed, because that's not a stuffy, that's a livey, I guess. The vending machine company had to come unlock it. They got the groundhog out. 17 more years of winter. Number 5, the Texas Rangers making an appearance at the White House today to celebrate their 2023 World Series victory, the first time that team's ever won. Remember, the Rangers clinched the series by defeating the Diamondbacks in Game 5 last year. Overseas now, Japan today on high alert after a powerful 7.1 magnitude quake hit off its southern coast, triggering a tsunami advisory and some concerns that another bigger so-called mega quake could follow. The Japan Meteorological Agency says the chance of a major earthquake that could trigger intense tsunamis is higher than usual for the next week. So what is a mega quake? Why is it more likely to happen there now? And could it happen to us here in the U.S.? Here's Dana Griffin.
A first-of-its-kind warning across Japan Thursday for a long-feared megaquake, following a powerful 7.1 magnitude earthquake that rocked the country's southern coast. Reverberations felt for miles, caught on cameras in offices along the coast and at an airport.
Please evacuate right now.
Tsunami warnings issued following the quake, urging some residents to leave the seaside. But so far, injuries and damage have been minimal. Researchers have long warned of a megaquake, 8 or 9 magnitude, potentially even more damaging than the 9.1 that set off a tsunami in 2011 and ravaged Japan's northeast coast. The disaster, one of the worst in this century, killing more than 18,000 people, leaving parts of the country in ruin, including a nuclear disaster at Fukushima that rattled the world.
There was a magnitude 7.3 earthquake that happened 2 days before that earthquake. And about 5% of the time, we see that there is an earthquake called foreshock that precedes a larger event.
Japan sits on the circum-Pacific belt known as the Ring of Fire, where tectonic plates meet, leading to lots of quakes and volcanic activity. The U.S.'s Pacific coast also on the Ring of Fire. Southern California just getting hit with a 5.2 magnitude quake Wednesday. Experts believe we should be ready for one of those mega quakes too.
There's a lot of effort being put into preparing for such an event in terms of both the seismic hazard, the ground shaking, and the tsunamis.
Preparing for what seems unthinkable, but might be inevitable. Dana Griffin, NBC News.
When we come back, much more to get to on the show, including the growing concerns tonight in Gaza about the spread of diseases like polio. Why doctors tell our Richard Engel, even if vaccines make it there, they'll be destroyed. Plus, what triggered unprecedented flooding in the capital of Alaska. Look at that. That's next. So tonight's Original Now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's the growing concern about the spread of disease in Gaza. Diseases like polio, hepatitis, impacting everybody from the elderly to children because of unsanitary conditions in Gaza. The UN warning of critical shortages in medicine, food, and an increasing humanitarian disaster there. Richard Engel has more, but we want to warn you. You may find some of what you're about to see disturbing.
After 10 months of Israeli strikes, aid groups say the Gaza Strip has become effectively unlivable. The UN says nearly 2/3 of buildings have been damaged and destroyed, a level of devastation not seen, it said, since World War II. Communicable diseases are spreading rapidly, and polluted water is one of the main causes. The World Health Organization said last month it is extremely worried about the spread of polio after traces of the virus were found in wastewater. Infants like 7-month-old Sobiha Hamouda have not been vaccinated since the war began after Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel. Sobiha already has a skin disease. Doctors say it's from bacteria in the water she drinks and bathes in. Her mother, Samar, says all the water in Gaza is dirty. She has been suffering from this condition for 20 days, and every day it increases, she says. Samar told us she can neither find nor afford any medicine. Basic necessities, including soap, have become nearly impossible to find. The mayor of Han Yunis told NBC News at least 30 water wells in southern Gaza were destroyed by Israeli strikes last month alone. We don't have water in the tent, so we come to wash in the street, says 8-year-old Sohail. The World Health Organization says 70% of Gaza's sewage pumps have been destroyed and that not a single sewage treatment plant still functions. So children like Sabiha not only have rashes, many are coming down with hepatitis A as well.
This is due to pollution and bad sanitation and the sewage that is coming in the water that we are drinking and which washing our hands and bodies with it.
Israel is aware of the threat of disease. Last month, the Israeli army announced it will offer polio vaccinations to all soldiers operating in Gaza. Israel fears they could bring it back home. The 2.2 million people of Gaza are still waiting. Israel says it is working with aid organizations to ensure vaccinations are allowed in. Aid groups have more than 1 million doses ready.
Many doctors warn without refrigeration, the polio vaccines will be destroyed, even if they make it in. Hallie?
Richard Engel, thank you very much for that reporting. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Midwest bureau, Chicago police finding the body of a woman dead at O'Hare Airport after she allegedly got trapped in some kind of machinery. We're still waiting to hear more about how it happened this morning, with police confirming she was unresponsive in the baggage area, pronouncing her dead at the scene. Out of our Western Bureau, over 100 homes in Alaska's capital now destroyed by flooding after a dam burst there. You see it there. Weather officials say water levels at this point are now back to normal, and fortunately nobody was hurt, but look at that. You see how high the water got. Hundreds of locals are cleaning up about a year after the last dam burst in roughly the same spot. And also out of our Western Bureau, guess what? It's Panda Day in California. A new exhibit at the San Diego Zoo showing off a pair of pandas there for the first time in 5 years. Of course, part of that panda diplomacy program between the U.S. and China. Still to come here on the show, a very, very close call for Team USA Basketball. Plus, track star Noah Lyles revealing he has COVID just minutes after winning bronze. So what does this mean for his chances racing tomorrow? We're going to ask our own Keir Simmons. Getting ready. He's getting his IFB in. He's getting mic'd up. He's on his mark. Let's get set for Keir next. Close call for Team USA Basketball in Paris tonight, defeating Serbia after trailing most of the game. And not just by a little. At one point, the Americans were down by 18 points. It really came down to the end. Team USA only taking the lead with 4 minutes left in the game. A nail-biter. And not the only drama at the Olympics today. Look at this. Sprinting star Noah Lyles. What's that? Getting hauled off the track, basically. He has a COVID diagnosis, he says, the officials say. He won bronze in the 200-meter, his signature event, but then left the track in that chair you just saw. Later telling reporters he was lightheaded, he had shortness of breath, chest pain afterwards. U.S. track officials say Lyles tested positive Tuesday. It has been a bananas day at the Olympics, and so thank goodness Keir Simmons is there because he gets bananas, and he's gonna break it down for us, Keir. There's like a lot. There was a lot of drama today, right? Between basketball, between Noah Lyles. Let's start with, like, sort of what your takeaway is. And we can start with basketball, what it means for the final against France.
Let's start with basketball. Let's start with America's in trouble, man. America.
Okay.
I don't know what's happened, right?
Okay.
Because I could stand. Well, I could stand here and talk geopolitics. We could talk about, you know, the new Cold War, all that stuff. But how can it be that America gets that close to losing to Serbia in basketball? I mean, it's like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, they're all on, and then you're coming into the fourth quarter and you're 13 points behind. I mean, it was exciting. It was thrilling. It was incredible. I mean, they managed to put it back, and there were shouts. Every American voice across this whole city of Paris was hollering. I'm telling you, amazing. It does set us up for a final against France, where I think the noise will be off the scale here, because the French. Anytime any French athlete is playing at these Olympics, the French go crazy against America in the basketball. Wow. But it should, I mean, I don't know. People who know basketball better than I will explain to me how come a bunch of guys that are that good struggle that much and then just manage to put it away at the end.
For my own planning, when is the basketball final? Remind us.
Saturday. I think it's Saturday.
Great.
Thanks for the question that I wasn't prepared for, but I'm pretty sure it's Saturday.
They're all questions. I mean, what do you think? What do you think? We prep for this? Come on.
No, people really do. That's a little pull back the curtain. People really think, we're riffing.
We're riffing, babes. You know it. A little yap sesh. Wait, Noah Lyles. So he gets COVID. He still runs. But is he going to run? I think there's this question mark. He's supposed to do the relay final tomorrow. Is he going to do it? Do we know?
That's a good question, but there are so many questions, aren't there? And I mean, I can't believe it. I don't know where to start, and I don't know what to think, because so he runs with COVID. He gets a bronze medal, so you're like, in the 200 meters, so you're like, well, that's impressive.
Right.
But then he collapses, needs medics with him, so you're thinking, well, that's scary. And then, of course, as we begin to kind of make sense of this, because it's only later, after the race, we find out that he says he was tested positive for COVID. It's like, okay, but so wait, you still went and ran, and you embraced your fellow athletes, and actually maybe even did interviews during the week after you were tested? I mean, there are a lot of questions here. And he's such a great athlete, such a great performer, but let's not pretend that this is going to be talked about.
Yes, it's the body, you know. So I think there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on that. A lot of eyeballs too on this next question, Keir, because you know what I'm going to ask.
Yes.
This is our last. This is our last, Keir, because closing ceremonies are this weekend. You and I. This is it. This is it for this. So you got to lay it on me, pal. Favorite moment. Okay. You could do the whole Olympics, the whole thing. What should we know? What Keir Simmons' favorite moment of the Olympics? Go.
My favorite moment. My two daughters arrived here in Paris, and we took them to the rhythmic gymnastics, which is their passion today, and they sat there entranced and captivated, and my heart was just full, man, full. And we're going to take them to some other events, including the closing ceremony. So how lucky am I as a dad to be able to do that?
Can I tell you, man, I didn't have crying on a Keir Simmons hit in my bingo card, but that is so cool. That is so special. I'm so glad you're getting to have a family moment like that, Keir, because you know what? I think there's a lot of families all around the world who are watching the Olympics, maybe not with a front row seat like you, that are really thinking about what this means for their kids and the next generation.
Of course. And I know how blessed I am to have that opportunity.
It's amazing.
It's
great. Keir Simmons, we're so glad to have you. Thank you for being there every single night for us, man. Seriously. You are the gold medalist of our hearts, so thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's been fun.
It's been fun. Thank you, friend. We'll talk soon. Safe travels home. That does it for us for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now. On the air tonight with Tropical Storm Take 2 as Debby makes landfall yet again, spinning off tornadoes and triggering devastating flooding. We're live in North Carolina. Look at this as that now deadly storm moves through the state. And dramatic body cam video showing the moment a police officer comes face to face with the man attempting to assassinate former President Trump just before he fired. And the finger pointing at the Secret Service from those local officials picked up on that video. We're breaking down what we're just learning late today and what's next in the investigation. Then what could have been what officials call a bloodbath at Taylor Swift's Vienna concerts stopped in its tracks. The tip from the U.S. that helped prevent it and what this means for other big events. And misinformation about the election on X posted by Elon Musk. So why isn't the fact-checking system catching it after more than 1 billion views? Plus, Japan warning for the first time of something experts have been worried about for a while, a mega quake. What exactly is it and how bad it could get later in the show? Hey there, I'm Hallie, and tonight we are on the ground as Tropical Storm Debby carves another path of dangerous destruction across the South. Right now, slamming North Carolina. I want to show this to you, the scene right outside Raleigh, where a tornado, you see that, ripped apart a home and a middle school. One person was killed, as the governor says the state is facing unrelenting rain and destruction. Just late tonight, we've learned that there is a ground stop at the Raleigh airport, and we want to show you some new video into us, too. Some kids being rescued. I'm trying to get a closer look here. Look at this. They were pulled out of intense floodwaters into boats in Raleigh. Very scary moments as you're looking at that here. But this is a snapshot of what's happening tonight in the Carolinas. You've got Debby making landfall for the second time along the coast, packing a triple threat of a ton of rain, intense flooding, flash flooding, and those tornadoes. Tens of thousands of people are now in the dark across the Carolinas as the system rips through, knocking down power lines. And it's not over yet. Debby is headed further north with tens of millions of people along a nearly 1,000-mile stretch all the way up to Canada on alert tonight. Let's get to Priscilla Thompson in North Carolina. Let's talk about what we're seeing. Some of this new video of these rescues, Priscilla, the recovery effort. Where do things stand right now?
Yeah, and we know that there were several rescues overnight as well as these floodwaters began to rise. And today, the good news is the floodwaters are starting to recede in certain communities. But it really is about folks coming out and assessing the damage and the situation. We were in Bladenboro about 20 minutes from here and spoke to a business owner, Emily, and she said that at 10:30 last night, the fire department called her and told her her business was flooding. And she rushed downtown where numerous businesses were flooding. And in a matter of an hour, people in that community had come down to try to help them remove furniture, put things up on higher tables to try to save some of their businesses. But she says that now, as she's cleaning up and trying to reopen her shop, she wants them to focus on better infrastructure so that this doesn't keep happening in these areas. I want to play part of our conversation.
We've worked really hard to try to revitalize our downtown, and that's working, but we need to make sure that we have the appropriate drainage for not only the businesses but the homes.
And we know that there wasn't just property destruction here, but there was that one man who was killed in Lucoma, North Carolina, about an hour outside of Raleigh when that tornado tore through that area, bringing the death toll from this storm to 7 people as it now continues to head north. Hallie?
Priscilla Thompson, lots to watch there in North Carolina and beyond tonight. Thank you. Also, lots to watch as we're also getting some dramatic new body cam video showing the exact moment a police officer climbed onto the roof in Butler, Pennsylvania, where a would-be assassin was getting ready to open fire on former President Trump. Look at the video here. I'm showing it to you. Butler Township, Pennsylvania officer climbing up on the roof and then immediately dropping back down, potentially because of concerns the shooter was about to turn his rifle on the officer. There's no audio from that moment. It's just this video. But later moments capture this officer's immediate reaction to what he saw. Listen.
This close, bro. Dude, he turned around on me. Seriously, he was right where you picked me up, bro. He was on that left side.
Remember, the suspect was able to get several shots off in the moments after that officer climbed the roof. Shots that hurt the former president and killed a bystander before the shooter was killed by a Secret Service sniper. Let's go to NBC's Tom Winter, who's following this for us. Okay, let's talk us through what we're seeing and hearing, because there's some new insights we're getting based on the conversations between these officers and what this video shows.
Hallie, some of the most important evidence to law enforcement officials when they investigate a crime are the things that people immediately say after something has happened, because it's at that moment that their memory is most clear, that they are reacting in their most genuine way to whatever trauma or shock that they just saw. The video that you played for us and the video that we're looking at now captures a moment. We don't see it because, remember, the body-worn camera is worn at approximately the chest level, so we don't see it as he tries to get up on the roof and immediately drops back down, because according to the Secret Service testimony and the timeline of events, it's 30 seconds after he gets up on that roof where he sees Thomas Matthew Crooks turn to him with his rifle and point at him that he jumps down, radios, and 30 seconds later, there are shots fired at the former president. But of course, a lot of this over the past several weeks has been, how could that have even happened? And we heard today from a Butler Township Police Department member in what he says happened in the back and forth with the Secret Service leading up to this event. Let's take a listen, Hallie.
I told them they need to post the guys over here. I told them that the Secret Service. I told them that Tuesday. I told them to post guys over here.
Hallie, in addition to that, he later says on the tape that he had a discussion with the Secret Service on Tuesday. So remember, the shooting was on a Saturday. Tuesday, several days beforehand, he's talking to the Secret Service where he says that they should have been posted back there. That back there on the video is behind the building or buildings where eventually Crooks was able to get on top of and fire shots at former President Trump, 8 rounds in total. So that's the reaction that we're getting from police officers in the seconds after this happened. And clearly they were upset that they were even responding to this at all based on what they say. They told the Secret Service. We're still waiting on a response from the Secret Service, but of course we've reached out to them.
Okay, that was a question there, too, because of the criticism now, and we've seen this wedge, essentially, between the locals, the state, and the federal officials who are on this. Tom, given your expertise on this story, and as you say, potentially the most important evidence that we have seen since that assassination attempt happened into the investigation into how these security failures occurred, does this raise other new questions? In other words, bring us inside your reporter's notebook. What else now? Like, what other paths does this open up here?
It is critical that we start to get some answers from the Secret Service in this investigation as to who was told what and when. And very clearly there was a walkthrough. This happens all the time. They get everybody involved. If this was in New York City, they'd bring in the NYPD and they'd say, hey, what do you all see as a potential threat or a problem with this building or this street or this avenue? And they go through it and they sit around a table and everybody thinks about what are all the things that somebody could do. Okay, how are we going to cover that? That appears to have taken place here, if we're to believe the officer, in what is clearly an immediate reaction after this event. And so who was he talking to? What was said? And the critical question that I continue to have, actually 2 questions. One, did anybody go back to that building and check, do we have officers where we need them to be? Is the Secret Service where we need them to be? Are we on top of that roof? Who is responsible for checking the math? And then the second question is, it's very clear from the first video, this video that we're looking at right now, that the officer did alert that this person was on the roof, and the fact that there were 2 separate command posts and that information couldn't be relayed real time, I think is going to be a big, big component of this investigation going forward, Hallie.
Tom Winter, important reporting. Thank you very much. Lots to follow on that front. And on that note, we are actually, in just the last couple of minutes, given how late breaking and fast developing this is, getting in a statement from the Secret Service, responding to that body cam video, calling that day an agency, quote, failure, saying that they are, you see it here, aware of and reviewing the body cam footage from July 13th that was recently released by local law enforcement. They go on to say they appreciate our local law enforcement partners who acted courageously as they worked to locate the shooter that day, adding that the attempted assassination of former President Trump was a Secret Service failure. We are reviewing and updating our protective policies and procedures in order to ensure a tragedy like this never occurs again. Also tonight, some new details in that planned attack on Taylor Swift's concerts in Vienna, with officials saying one of the suspects confessed that he wanted to kill as many people as possible with knives and explosives at one of her shows and then die by suicide. Officials finding some assembled explosive devices inside his home, along with, in their words, vast amounts of al-Qaeda and ISIS material. Remember, it was only about 24 hours ago that we brought you here on this show as breaking news. The news that concert organizers decided to cancel all 3 of those Swift shows set to start tonight and go into the weekend after officials arrested 2 suspects in this thwarted plot. Taylor Swift's concert manager says part of the reason they decided to call off these shows was because one of the suspects had actually worked at the venue for days. Obviously, Taylor Swift brings in huge crowds, with some of those fans, of course, disappointed by the news.
It was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to come with my bestie to see Taylor Swift, and so I'm a little bummed.
We planned all year to be here, so what a huge disappointment for our friends and for our kids.
We were just heartbroken to hear that it was canceled.
When the news got out that it was canceled, there were a lot of tears.
Of course, there's questions now about what this all means for some other big events planned in the city over the next few days and weeks, including 4 mega Coldplay concerts at the end of the month. Ken Delanian is joining us now. It's a lot of new details that have come out since we were sort of unpacking this right when it was happening yesterday on this show. Talk us through a little bit about where the investigation stands, because it sounds like from what officials say, it had the potential to be very serious.
extremely serious, Hallie, and it appears that this was a close call. We learned that U.S. intelligence provided the original tip to Austrian authorities that led them to find the suspect. Apparently, he had posted a manifesto pledging allegiance to ISIS a few weeks before, and that may have contributed to them finding him. They searched his house. As you said, they found a machete, explosives, chemicals, ISIS and al-Qaeda propaganda. He has now confessed, we are told, and he planned to kill as many people as he could and himself. And this just underscores the threat from radical Islam, particularly in Europe, that has not gone away.
Taylor Swift still has other shows. I mean, and her crowds, we know, are huge. Tons of people turn out for her. She's one of the world's biggest stars. She's heading to London, I believe, next. The mayor there says those shows, for now, are going to go on as planned. But talk about the concern around the world now. Australia just raised its terror threat level, et cetera. I mean, it feels like there are some places that are getting to be a little bit on edge.
Yeah, what's so concerning is we thought we were out of the woods with this Islamic extremist terror threat. It seems to be resurging, and these are so difficult to, these plots are so difficult to ferret out because they are lone wolves. There's no evidence of any connection to specific ISIS people. They were inspired online, and that can happen anywhere. Remember, in 2017, there was an attack in Manchester on an Ariana Grande concert that killed a number of people. So British authorities are mindful of that. They say they are stepping up security. And, you know, you can't stop every outdoor or concert or venue. You got to live your life, and that's what they intend to do with vigilance.
Ken Delanian, thank you very much for all that reporting. Appreciate it. In just the last few hours, former President Trump is committing to 3 debates next month on 3 different networks as part of his first public appearance since Vice President Harris announced Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate. The vice president responding just before getting on Air Force 2 a couple of minutes ago. Watch this.
I'm glad that he finally agreed to a debate on September 10th. I'm looking forward to it. And Are you open to more debates? I am happy to have that conversation about an additional debate for after September 10th. Sure.
All right, after September 10th, that would presumably mean potentially, if she's having the conversation, the possibility of her participating in an NBC News debate on September 25th, as former president said he has agreed to. We also are now hearing from President Biden on this. Remember, his debate with former President Trump at the end of June is what ultimately, it seems, ended his re-election campaign. Listen.
In debating Trump, are you confident in Vice President Harris?
You heard the president there. Might not have heard him, but read it. He says as long as he keeps talking, all of it. Coming after a pretty long stem winder of a press conference from former President Trump, who personally insulted Harris's intelligence, ran through a long list of claims that aren't true, and seemed kind of annoyed by talk of crowd sizes at Harris-Walz rallies, making a controversial comparison between the crowd he spoke to on January 6th and the crowd who watched MLK give his I Have a Dream speech.
The biggest crowd I've ever spoken, I've spoken to the biggest crowds. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me. If you look at Martin Luther King, when he did his speech, his great speech, and you look at ours, same real estate, same everything, same number of people, if not, we had more.
Okay, obviously not the case, as tonight we're seeing a tale of 2 campaigns emerge with 2 very different strategies. Let's hit it with both of our campaign reporters in the field tonight. NBC's Shaq Brewster is in Detroit with the vice president, but let's start with Garrett Haake down near Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida. So, Garrett, you know the meme of like people who take meetings and they're like, hey, this meeting could have been an email. The announcement on the press conferences could have been a Truth Social post, right? But clearly, former President Trump wanted to get out there. They invited members of the media to come for what they described initially as a press event. The Harris campaign suggested that he was essentially so eager for the spotlight to turn back to him that he was throwing what they described as a temper tantrum in front of the media. He wanted to talk, and talk he did today.
That's right, Hallie, and I think the purpose of having him talk was more to have him talk than in any actual message he conveyed. The Trump campaign is keen to try to backfoot Kamala Harris's campaign by suggesting she's not capable of doing what we just saw her do on the tarmac there, take questions from reporters without a teleprompter in the middle, essentially. They want to try to get her out there, not because they think it's a good media story that he's accessible and that she's not, but because they think the more she talks, the less voters, particularly the independent voters who they think will decide this election, are likely to kind of buy into the hype and the kind of momentary surge years that they believe that she's having. So that's why you see Donald Trump holding this hour-plus long press conference today, which had more false things in it than we could fact check across the balance of this program. But again, that wasn't even really the point. The point was to get him out there and to show that he can still do this. Why isn't she?
At one point, he said something like, and I'm paraphrasing here, it's not about her, it's about policy, meaning it's not about Harris, it's about policy. A statement that was belied by the other hour, 4 minutes and 30 seconds of him going after, her personally. He obviously talked about some of the policies that he didn't like, again, in ways that at times were not truthful, were not based in evidence here. What is the plan, the strategy for the next 89 days? We hear a lot about let Trump be Trump. Is that it?
Well, no. I mean, you hit the tension of this because the plan, the strategy, is to do what Trump started out doing, which is to criticize Kamala Harris on policy and on the things that she has said in the past that she is for, things like Medicare for All, which she co-sponsored, the Green New Deal, which she was a major supporter of. They believe that her actual policy positions, they being the Trump campaign, are well to the left of where the American people are, and that if they can just communicate that message, they will win the center-right coalition that they need to become president of the United States. That plan is sometimes complicated by Donald Trump, the candidate, who likes to communicate in a certain way that often includes personal attacks, like calling her incompetent or questioning her racial heritage and then denying, as he did today, that he's actually done so when we all have him on tape. That's the cost of putting your candidate out there to take questions from the press, that you will get perhaps slightly off message or wildly off message, as we saw from Donald Trump today.
Garrett Hake, live for us there in Palm Beach. Thanks, pal. Appreciate it. Shaq, let me go to you because Garrett's on the campaign trail and will be, of course, following the former president as he heads to Montana next. Vice President Harris, I believe, is also heading out west, right? She's got to stop in battleground Arizona.
That's right, Arizona and then Nevada. So they are on the way out west right now. We can expect to see more rallies as part of this rollout. And, we talked a little bit about that debate now that it's on the calendar. It's now September 10th. I went to put the debate day in my phone, Hallie, and I'll tell you, I got confused because it was already there. And that's because this just shows you the back and forth that we've been looking at for the past couple of months. Of course, back then it was when it was supposed to be Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Then Donald Trump backed out of it once you saw the vice president rise to the top of the ticket. So there's been a lot of back and forth about that debate, but you're hearing the campaign push back not only on the idea that she's ready and willing to debate, but that she can take those questions. You heard Garrett mention the fact that she did so just in front of Air Force Two just a couple of minutes ago. The campaign trying to do what they can to push back on that messaging that you're hearing from Trump and Vance as they are also on the campaign trail.
What's interesting, too, Shaq, is that in that moment from Air Force 2 that we just watched kind of together, because it literally just happened, she said, I would be interested in having the conversation about debates after September 10th, which would rule out the week before, and that Fox News setting that former President Trump has floated that seems to be now off the table. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that turns into like just a town hall with Mr. Trump or something, but it looks pretty clear like that's not going to be a debate.
Right. It looks like that's not going to be a debate. But look, we really don't know at this point. That today has kind of moved very quickly in both what we've been hearing from the vice president and what we've been hearing from Donald Trump's side.
There's also been this attack that Republicans have tried to levy against Kamala Harris's new running mate, of course, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota here, particularly on his military record. And the campaign is sort of the Harris-Walz campaign is kind of flexing some muscle to push back on that.
Right, and I'll tell you, what you've been hearing first from the Republican side is that there's some suggestion that the time in which he retired, he did so to avoid going to Iraq. And then there's some comments that he made where he suggested he was in a war or combat theater when we know that was not the case. That was something that I tried to ask him directly on the rope line. He didn't answer any of those questions. But Vice President Harris, in front of Air Force Two, was asked about that. Listen to what she said.
Some of the criticism has been about your vice presidential pick and his leading the National Guard at 24 years. Vance said that he deserted his own troops, deserted his own colleagues. What's your take on that?
I praise anyone who has defended themselves to their purpose. And I think that we all
Look, this is all part of the race to define Governor Walz now that he's on the ticket. I talked to a lot of the union workers who were here. They dismissed the attacks coming from the Republican side, but you get a sense of how these are going to go back and forth as we have the election coming up in 89 days, Hallie.
Shaq Brewster live for us there in Wayne, Michigan. More from you, I know, as the political season continues to unfold. Just 89 days left. Let's talk Boeing now, with its new CEO trying to hit the ground running today. Day one of a tough job now under his belt. He's already getting some praise because Kelly Ortberg is taking the lead from the factory floor of a company in crisis mode. He spent the day walking around Boeing's factory in Renton, Washington, talking with workers, looking over safety and quality plans. And he's expected to do the same at other Boeing plants as well. Writing in an email to employees today, people's lives depend on what we do every day, and we must keep that top of mind. It may not be easy. There's a lot on the line for Boeing after some pretty serious image issues. The door plug that blew out of an Alaska Airlines flight midair earlier this year. 2 deadly crashes of its best-selling planes in 2018 and 2019. Last month, when the company agreed to plead guilty to defrauding the government during the certification of its MAX planes. And then we've been telling you about that Boeing Starliner spaceship still in space 2 months after its crew was supposed to come home, not supposed to call it stuck, but they may be there another 6 months. Tom Costello is joining us now. I mean, it's been a year for Boeing, and not the kind of year that they wanted to have. You now have this guy who has maybe the hardest job in aviation starting his first day today.
Yeah, listen, this company is vital to the national economy. Nobody other than maybe Airbus, nobody's rooting against Boeing. But they've got a lot of problems. And it's not just the 737 MAX 8 crashes overseas and the MAX 9 door plug, or the fact that they pleaded guilty to a felony, or the fact that they're under NTSB and FAA investigation, or the fact that they've got an Inspector General report coming down hard on them for their space division, or an IG report coming down hard on their Pentagon Defense Division. Take a look at the to-do list, and as I read that to you, or as you see what the to-do list is, let me just make the point. It is space, Starliners, we said, commercial aircraft. I just went back and looked at defense. Defense is operating at a loss. You know, they make a lot of planes, a lot of weapon systems. $3.5 billion loss in 2022, $1.8 billion in 23. The GAO found 108 weapon systems have problems, 9 major cost overruns. We've got problems with the new Air Force One, behind schedule, over budget, with the new F-15EX fighter, with the KC-46 tanker, and with the trainer. The entire defense system, the unit, is in trouble, not to mention every other unit. The reason that he's moving his headquarters, his CEO-ship, back to Renton, Washington, is because that is essentially the heart and soul of Boeing. It's where commercial aircraft are made. They moved the headquarters to Chicago about 20 years ago. Then they moved it to Alexandria, Virginia, to be close to the Pentagon, and they took their eye off the ball here, clearly, on commercial aviation.
So it's a lot on his plate. I mean, all of that boils down to this is a lot on this guy's plate. And he's had 2 predecessors who were also tasked in different ways under different circumstances with trying to inject Boeing with some more, you know, oomph, if you will. They had a tough time. Is he going to do any better?
Listen, this company has a history of CEOs who have failed. Failed with a capital F. Look at the list of CEOs. And then I'm going to tell you how much these people made. Dennis Muhlenberg was the CEO. He was there during the MAX 8. I'm sorry, he failed miserably. He got something like a $50 million payout. So they brought in Dave Calhoun. MAX 9, the door plug blowout, Starliner, everything going on now in the defense unit. He leaves with a $45 million payout. Now they bring in Kelly Ortberg, $17 million for taking the job, $22 million salary. A lot of people are hoping he is the answer. He comes with a very impressive resume on aerospace engineering for aerospace companies. But listen, this is a tough, tough job, and the pressure's on.
Tom Costello, just fascinating. Thank you for watching all of it for us as it goes down. Appreciate it. Tonight, people in Hawaii are honoring more than 100 others killed by the devastating wildfires that ripped through the island of Maui a year ago. It's been a year since the town of Lahaina burned. And tonight, they're hosting some events like this beach paddle out and a memorial this evening to honor and remember the victims. Remember, this started out as a brush fire, boosted by high winds, and then exploded into a wildfire, a massive and horrific one. There's still some questions over what sparked it and what caused it to get so bad so quickly. Thousands of people lost their homes. Historic landmarks were destroyed. Now rebuilding is finally happening, but it's happening slowly. President Biden today is pledging his administration's continued support, saying we've made tremendous progress this past year, but we have a lot more to do. NBC's Steve Patterson has made his way back to Lahaina 1 year later, and he is joining us now. This paddle out, this memorial tonight, it's an opportunity for people in and around Lahaina and Maui to honor the victims of this fire yet again.
The trauma here is deep, as it is wide. It has touched so many people, and it has touched them deeply in a way in which, you know, I think everybody has felt it. It permeates through the community. It's affected nearly every facet of life. So to have these events, to have the paddle out, which ended hours ago, and there's still people here together, remembering, celebrating, being together, I think is important. I think it's important for the folks here to be able to move on in whatever way they can. And I think a lot of that is going to come through some more viable opportunities, like having actual, safe, sound, permanent housing. I think that is the #1 thing. People cannot move forward unless they feel safe about where they are now. But I think just knowing that people are here and sharing in that trauma together and trying to put it past them all together, and that includes the mayor, the governor, some of the people that we've been meeting, you know, since we've been here on Monday on the ground, I think it's important for everyone to do. And we've seen it certainly today. Hallie?
Talk about the road ahead, because even to get to this point 1 year later was just such an undertaking for people in the area. And this is really only the beginning. It's a marathon.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. I don't think anybody would think that the road ahead was going to be easy or even getting to this point. This is an island that has sustained a major mortal wound, that has never dealt with a crisis this huge, and they never should have. But here we are. I think a lot of people have been sort of complaining about the amount of red tape it's taken, the amount of time it's taken to get assistance, to get permitting, to get permanent housing. There's been a lot of complaint about that, but there also has been progress. 90% of all the debris that you're showing in these pictures is cleaned up. It looks totally different. There are frames of houses that are going up. At least 20 are being built as we speak, but there's so much still to go. Hallie?
Steve Patterson, live for us in Lahaina. Steve, it's so glad to have you there. We're so glad that you're back and continuing this reporting. I think it's just so important for us to do. So thank you. Coming up here on the show, we're just hearing 3 deans have resigned from one of the world's most prestigious universities. We're going to explain why in just a second. But first, Samsung's recalling millions of stoves. What your pets may have to do with it. New and growing concerns tonight about the spread of election misinformation on X, formerly known as Twitter, with a new report showing false or misleading claims about the election posted by Elon Musk have been seen more than 1 billion times. Billion with a B. That's according to the nonprofit Center for Countering Digital Hate, whose researchers say they found 50 posts by Musk, the owner, of course, of the platform, with election claims that have been debunked by fact checkers, including claims that elections are wide open for fraud and illegal voting by non-citizens. NBC News and other outlets have fact-checked those claims that non-citizens register to vote, finding them to be false. Musk and X did not reply to requests for comment. David Ingram is joining us now. Interesting here is the Musk of it all, because when he bought Twitter and then changed the name to X, he also laid off a bunch of people, and that raised some concerns and alarms that sounded at the time, and we covered them, about fact-checking, about the ability to platform dis or misinformation. X has this like user-driven fact-checking system. People will recognize that at the bottom of like a tweet that's wrong or a post that's wrong. It feels like from this research that may not be working so effectively here. What's happening?
Yeah, Hallie, I think that's exactly right. This is not working perhaps at all, and certainly not to the extent that Musk claims that it does. So this fact-checking system on X, it's called Community Notes. It was actually created before Musk bought the company, and it was never intended to be this complete truth-squatting system to catch every piece of misinformation. Twitter used to have staff at their headquarters in San Francisco and elsewhere who would help to track misinformation that was spreading on the platform and limit its spread. Now X is relying entirely on this system that is vote-based. And so you have so many of these fans of Elon Musk who are using X and voting down perhaps some of the proposed notes on his false claims.
Let's talk about Elon Musk, because a lot of people do. He is a Trump backer. He has committed to donating, he says, millions of dollars a month to Trump. There's a question of whether that's actually going to happen, et cetera. But he has a huge audience online on his platform. It's like nearly 200 million followers here. He's got a big megaphone, and there have been some questions as to how he's used it.
Yeah, he has really taken a big stake in this election, come out strong for Donald Trump, and he's using this enormous megaphone to try to push issues that are favorable to Trump, including immigration, and to criticize Democrats. I mean, the question here is what kind of consequences he could face for this over the long term. He spent $44 billion to buy Twitter 2 years ago. It's now lost something like 70% of its value. So this is a losing business for him right now. But also Musk has these long-term reputational ideas where people just think less of him. So we'll see how that plays out over time.
Yeah. David Ingram, great reporting. Thank you. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, 3 Columbia University deans resigning today, according to a university spokesperson. They were all put on leave last month after sending disturbing texts during a forum about anti-Semitism on campus. The deans did not respond to the New York Times request for comment. Number 2, Samsung recalling more than 1 million electric stovetops after reports of 250 fires that hurt dozens of people. 7 pets have died. Officials say the appliances have knobs that can be activated if somebody accidentally bumps into them. The recalled ranges were sold between May 2013 and this past August. There's a full list online, so get in touch with the company for a free set of knob locks or covers. Number 3, magician David Copperfield getting sued for allegedly trashing his New York City condo. The suit accuses him of causing nearly $2 million worth of damage to the building's elevators, more than $1 million worth to other units. At one point, allegedly, his rooftop pool burst because he used bad plumbing fixtures, they say, meaning units as much as 30 floors down flooded. His team has not returned NBC's request for comment. Number 4, a groundhog rescued after getting stuck in a claw machine in Pennsylvania. The state's game commission says they got a call about an unusual prize, quote unquote, inside one of the machines. Yes, that is definitely unusual. The vending machine, look at that. Look at it. It looks like a stuffy. Definitely not. The vending machine company had to come, you see it here, and unlock it. They got the groundhog out, released it. The groundhog promptly predicted 16 more years of winter. Number 5, the Texas Rangers making an appearance at the White House today to celebrate their 2023 World Series win, the first time the team's ever won. Remember, the Rangers clinched the series by defeating the Diamondbacks of Arizona in Game 5 last year. Let's take it to Japan today on high alert after a powerful 7.1 magnitude quake hit off its southern coast, triggering a tsunami advisory and concerns that another bigger so-called mega quake could follow. The Japan Meteorological Agency says the chance of a major earthquake that could trigger powerful tsunamis is higher than usual for the next week. Okay, so what is a mega quake? Why is it more likely to happen there now? And could it happen to the U.S.? Here's Dana Griffin.
A first-of-its-kind warning across Japan Thursday for a long-feared megaquake, following a powerful 7.1 magnitude earthquake that rocked the country's southern coast. Reverberations felt for miles, caught on cameras in offices along the coast and at an airport.
Please evacuate right now.
Tsunami warnings issued following the quake, urging some residents to leave the seaside. But so far, injuries and damage have been minimal. Researchers have long warned of a megaquake, 8 or 9 magnitude, potentially even more damaging than the 9.1 that set off a tsunami in 2011 and ravaged Japan's northeast coast. The disaster, one of the worst in this century, killing more than 18,000 people, leaving parts of the country in ruin, including a nuclear disaster at Fukushima that rattled the world.
There was a magnitude 7.3 earthquake that happened 2 days before that earthquake. And about 5% of the time, we see that there is an earthquake called foreshock that precedes a larger event.
Japan sits on the Circum-Pacific belt known as the Ring of Fire, where tectonic plates meet, leading to lots of quakes and volcanic activity. The U.S.'s Pacific coast also on the ring of fire. Southern California just getting hit with the 5.2 magnitude quake Wednesday. Experts believe we should be ready for one of those mega quakes too.
There's a lot of effort being put into preparing for such an event in terms of both the seismic hazard, the ground shaking, and the tsunamis.
Preparing for what seems unthinkable, but might be inevitable. Dana Griffin, NBC News.
Coming up, much more to get to here on the show, including the growing concerns about the deadly diseases spreading throughout Gaza, what doctors tell our Richard Engel in tonight's original. But first, why young people in Kenya are now calling for the mother of all protests, in their words. We'll explain. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's a look at what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of Kenya, police firing tear gas at protesters as new government leaders are getting sworn into office. Officials arresting more than 150 demonstrators in just the last day who accused the government of corruption. Remember, protests first erupted there in June with demands for a vote against a controversial, now withdrawn bill that would have raised taxes and the cost of living. Demonstrators want the president to resign. Out of Russia, professional chess player is now under investigation for allegedly trying to poison her opponent in a match. Look at this video. This is her kind of going up to the chessboard. Officials accuse her of trying to cover her opponent's board with a substance containing mercury. For now, the player is suspended from all national competitions, but she could face a lifetime ban. Yikes. You see it there, caught on camera. China, now on track to have nearly twice the number of pets. So basically, twice the number of pets than the number of young children by the year 2030. A new report by Goldman Sachs finds the pet population will hit about 70 million, the number of kids nearly half that. Just a couple years ago, the situation was the opposite. According to the report, it's because there are fewer women in China between 20 to 35 years old, and a lot of young people aren't willing to start new families either. To tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's the new and growing concern about the spread of disease in Gaza. Things like polio and hepatitis impacting everybody from the elderly to children because of unsanitary conditions there. The UN warning of critical shortages in medicine, food, and an increasing humanitarian disaster. Richard Engel has this report, but we want to warn you, you may find some of what you're about to see disturbing.
After 10 months of Israeli strikes, aid groups say the Gaza Strip has become effectively unlivable. The UN says nearly 2/3 of buildings have been damaged and destroyed, a level of devastation not seen, it said, since World War II. Communicable diseases are spreading rapidly, and polluted water is one of the main causes. The World Health Organization said last month it is extremely worried about the spread of polio after traces of the virus were found in wastewater. Infants like 7-month-old Sobiha Hamouda have not been vaccinated since the war began after Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel. Sobiha already has a skin disease. Doctors say it's from bacteria in the water she drinks and bathes in. Her mother, Samar, says all the water in Gaza is dirty. She has been suffering from this condition for 20 days, and every day it increases, she says. Samar told us she can neither find nor afford any medicine. Basic necessities, including soap, have become nearly impossible to find. The mayor of Han Yunis told NBC News at least 30 water wells in southern Gaza were destroyed by Israeli strikes last month alone. We don't have water in the tent, so we come to wash in the street, says 8-year-old Sohail. The World Health Organization says 70% of Gaza's sewage pumps have been destroyed and that not a single sewage treatment plant still functions. So children like Sobiha not only have rashes, many are coming down with hepatitis A as well.
This is due to pollution and bad sanitation and the sewage that is coming in the water that we are drinking and which washing our hands and bodies with it.
Israel is aware of the threat of disease. Last month, the Israeli army announced it will offer polio vaccinations to all soldiers operating in Gaza. Israel fears they could bring it back home. The 2.2 million people of Gaza are still waiting. Israel says it is working with aid organizations to ensure vaccinations are allowed in. Aid groups have more than 1 million doses ready.
Many doctors warn without refrigeration, the polio vaccines will be destroyed, even if they make it in. Hallie?
Still to come here on the show, a very, very close call for Team USA basketball. Plus, track star Noah Lyles revealing he has COVID just minutes after winning bronze. So what does this mean for his chances racing tomorrow? We're going to ask our own Keir Simmons. Getting ready. He's getting his IFB in. He's getting mic'd up. He's on his mark. Let's get set for Keir next. Close call for Team USA basketball in Paris tonight, defeating Serbia after trailing most of the game. And not just by a little. At one point, the Americans were down by 18 points. It really came down to the end. Team USA only taking the lead with 4 minutes left in the game, a nail-biter. And not the only drama at the Olympics today. Look at this. Sprinting star Noah Lyles. What's that? Getting hauled off the track, basically. He has a COVID diagnosis, he says, the officials say. He won bronze in the 200-meter, his signature event, but then left the track in that chair you just saw. Later telling reporters he was lightheaded, he had shortness of breath, chest pain afterwards. U.S. track officials say Lyles tested positive Tuesday. It has been a bananas day at the Olympics, and so thank goodness Keir Simmons is there because he gets bananas, and he's gonna break it down for us, Keir. There's like a lot. There was a lot of drama today, right? Between basketball, between Noah Lyles. Let's start with like sort of what your takeaway is. And we can start with basketball, what it means for the final against France.
Let's start with basketball. Let's start with America's in trouble, man. America.
Okay.
I don't know what's happened, right?
Okay.
Because I could stand, well, I could stand here and talk geopolitics. We could talk about, you know, the new Cold War, all that stuff. But how can it be that America gets that close to losing to Serbia in basketball? I mean, it's like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, they're all on, and then you're coming into the fourth quarter and you're 13 points behind. I mean, it was exciting. It was thrilling. It was incredible. I mean, they managed to put it back, and there were shouts. Every American voice across this whole city of Paris was hollering, I'm telling you. Amazing. It does set us up for a final against France, where I think the noise will be off the scale here, because the French, anytime any French athlete is playing at these Olympics, the French go crazy against America in the basketball. Wow. But it should, I mean, I don't know. People who know basketball better than I will explain to me how come a bunch of guys that are that good struggle that much and then just manage to put it away at the end.
For my own planning, when is the basketball final? Remind us.
Saturday. I think it's Saturday.
Great.
Thanks for the question that I wasn't prepared for, but I'm pretty sure it's Saturday.
They're all questions. I mean, what do you think? What do you think? We prep for this? Come on.
No, people really do. That's a little pull back the curtain. People really think, we're riffing.
We're riffing, babes. You know it. A little yap sesh. Wait, Noah Lyles. So he gets COVID. He still runs. But is he going to, I think there's this question mark. He's supposed to do the relay final tomorrow. Is he going to do it? Do we know?
That's a good question, but there are so many questions, aren't there? And I mean, I can't believe it. I don't know where to start, and I don't know what to think, because so he runs with COVID. He gets a bronze medal, so you're like in the 200 meters, so you're like, well, that's impressive.
Right.
But then he collapses, needs medics with him, so you're thinking, well, that's scary. And then, of course, as we begin to kind of make sense of this, because it's only later after the race we find out that he says he was tested positive for COVID. It's like, okay, but so wait, you still went and ran and you embraced your fellow athletes and actually maybe even did interviews during the week after you were tested? I mean, there are a lot of questions here. And he's such a great athlete, such a great performer, but let's not pretend that this is going to be talked about.
Yes, it's the body, you know, so I think there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on that. A lot of eyeballs, too, on this next question, Keir, because you know what I'm going to ask.
Yes.
This is our last This is our last, Keir, because closing ceremonies are this weekend. You and I, this is it. This is it for this. So you got to lay it on me, pal. Favorite moment. Okay. You could do the whole Olympics, the whole thing. What should we know? What Keir Simmons' favorite moment of the Olympics? Go.
My favorite moment, my two daughters arrived here in Paris, and we took them to the rhythmic gymnastics, which is their passion today, and they sat there entranced and captivated, and you know, my heart was just, you know, full, man, full. And we're going to take them to some other events, including the closing ceremony. So how lucky am I as a dad to be able to do that?
Can I tell you, man, I didn't have crying on a Keir Simmons hit in my bingo card, but that is so cool. That is so special. I'm so glad you're getting to have a family moment like that, Keir, because you know what? I think there's a lot of families all around the world who are watching the Olympics, maybe not with a front row seat like you, that are really thinking about what this means for their kids and the next generation.
Of course. And I know how blessed I am to have that opportunity.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's Keir Simmons, we're so glad to have you. Thank you for being there every single night for us, man. Seriously. You are the gold medalist of our hearts, so thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's been fun.
It's been fun. Thank you, friend. We'll talk soon. Safe travels home. That does it for us for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.